Have you ever had a spiritual or psychic experience that you felt you couldn't share with anyone? This is so common among children because they often have their connection to the other side still intact. Today, Lisa Campion shares her experiences of being so psychic as a young child that there was a dead girl that wanted to play with her. Comment and let me know, did you have psychic experiences as a child or not? And did you feel comfortable sharing them with people? I've tried a lot of energy healing modalities over the years, and as an energy sensitive, I can easily tell if something is legitimate. Hands down, one of my best experiences has been with Jamie of refractive healing. Refractive healing is a unique technique that channels rainbow light energy through your energy body. And let me tell you, I could feel its calming and supportive light flowing downward through my crown. I even received a physical healing during my session. I cannot recommend Jamie's work highly enough. Book your $22 Refractive Boost Distant Healing Session with Jamie today at refractivehealing.com. Check the description or the pinned comment for the link. Thank you to Refractive Healing for partnering with me in this video. I would love to hear about your earliest psychic experiences, because from what I understand, they started pretty young.
Totally. Yeah. And it was a very strange thing because I was born in the 60s. And back then there wasn't really a conversation to be had around, what we're talking about. So it was a bit of a struggle trying to figure out what was going on. I was really lucky that I had hippie parents and they were like meditating and doing some kind of cool stuff, but they still didn't really know what was going on. I think I had a lot of pretty common childhood experiences that lots of kids do when they're psychic kids do. So like my very, very first memory ever is of lying in my crib and seeing all these beings of light standing around me. They're all like glowing and waving kisses, and there's all this light there. And then the door opens and my mom walks into the room and they all disappear. So that's my absolute first memory of anything ever. Because I think I was born psychic. I know I was born psychic. And so I just would always experience like seeing colors around things, especially seeing colors around plants. I loved nature, and I lived kind of in a pretty urban, suburby kind of place. But anytime I could go find nature, I would see colors, auras around plants. I really think I was seeing fairies. I was talking to people that had crossed over my room. I grew up in of course, it's like Murphy's Law, right? I grew up in a super haunted house, a big old Victorian house just outside of Boston. And it was super haunted. I think it was haunted because I lived there, and like children who have mediumship ability are like ghost magnets. And I think
Right.
they just were coming around because I was there. And I when I was little, I called them the gray people. And they would sit on the edge of my bed. I was never afraid of them, but I was like, oh my God, it's the gray people again. they would just want to chat about things. One of the stories that stands out is my mom had this best friend, and she had a daughter my age, and we would go play there. And I hated it because standing on the stairs of her house was this dead girl. And I would walk up the stairs and be like, walk around her. Nobody else could see her. And then the dead girl would be in the room trying to play with us, the two other living little girls that were playing together. And I'm just sure, like, I was a very socially awkward kid. And I'm sure that was like my living friend was like, why are you being so weird? And I was just trying to like deal with it, trying to figure out how to deal with this really awkward social situation of me and the living girl and the dead girl all trying to play together. It was weird.
Wow. So I can understand that would have been so awkward and so weird. I think a lot of times kids who are like spiritually aware do tend to be a little more socially awkward because they're taking in so much more stimulus. And it's like, what do you focus on?
Yeah. And how do you explain, like, I remember not wanting to be rude to either one, like not wanting to be rude or freak out to the living girl and just feeling really sort of afraid of the dead girl and also not wanting to have her. I felt sorry for her. I didn't want to have her feel left out, you know?
Hmm.
So I just think I didn't know how do you handle situations when you're a kid and you're seeing or experiencing things other people aren't?
Mm. So did you know that your other friend couldn't see the dead girl?
Yeah. Yeah. I figured that out pretty quickly and just didn't know what to do about it,
Hmm.
how to sort of get along inside of the parameters of that, where you don't want to freak out the dead person and make her feel bad. You don't want to be so weird that the living girl doesn't want to play with me. So I think my childhood was filled with a lot of those kinds of experiences. And I knew that it was upsetting to grown-ups if you said too much about it.
Hmm.
And I also my mom was a social worker and then a therapist. And so I don't know how I knew this, but I knew when I was pretty little that I didn't want to end up in a mental hospital. And I'm not even sure how I knew what a mental hospital was. But I was like, I knew if I said too much about what I was experiencing, that was a possibility.
Hmm.
Seeing angels and talking to dead Uncle Fred was that's where you go.
Right.
So I was real quiet about my experiences. And I was told over and over again, it was my imagination. Oh, you have such a good imagination. You know, I mean, I'm grateful my hippie parents didn't like drag me to the church and try to throw holy water on me, which happens to some people. But still, they didn't know what to do. Like that, it wasn't really part of the lexicon the way it is now.
So I
Yeah.
remember you talking about how you had a twin in the womb and you knew about this. First, could you share that story and then I'll ask my question.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm sure that's how I became psychic. It's called the vanishing twin syndrome, and a lot of really psychic people have share that experience. So I remember. So it's weird saying you remember things inside the womb, but I swear that I do. And I know that I was a twin, and that when around 14 weeks, my twin brother died in utero. And I remember that happening. I remember him leaving. So I literally knew death before I knew life. I experienced death before I was even born, and you know how twins are like connected that way, the
Yeah.
twinsy thing. And then he crossed, he went to the other side, and I'm sure, and my connection with him stayed. So I'm sure that's how I got the gifts. I feel like that was on purpose. There was a contract there between me and him so that would happen to give me the gifts that I have. And when I was like 4 years old, he was my imaginary friend. He was my constant companion. I knew his name was William and I knew he was dead. My dad's name was William too, but everyone called him Bill. And I think my mom, I knew my parents, if they had a boy, they would have called him William. They just would have. So I was talking to him one day, talking out loud. I was like 4. And my mom comes into the room. It's such a clear memory. She had this like glass in her hand. And she's like, who are you talking to? And I said, my dead brother, William. And she like dropped the glass and like ran screaming, ran screaming out of the room. And then later on, when I was older, she told me that the doctors had suspected that she'd had a miscarriage or she'd had a miscarriage. And then they were real surprised when she was still pregnant, you know? And this again was in the 60s before ultrasounds and sonograms and things. So they're, they just figured she lost the baby, but I was still there. So that's kind of how that went. And I know it's relatively common for psyches to have the vanishing twin.
Have you had any other spiritual or psychic experiences in your adult life?
I mean, every single day. Every single day, I've never gone a minute without, feeling like I experience the world on a different level than other people do. So I'm kind of in a constant communication with my guides. I always say my guides are really bossy. I just show up and do what I'm told, and feeling like very passionate about my commitment, to be of service to humanity. But it's just a nonstop, every single day part of who I am. I have to really sort of buckle myself up if I go out in public. I have to do a lot of psychic self-defense and kind of put my shields up, just going to the supermarket or going in, those big box stores. Just take it out of me. Costco, Walmart, are really hard on people who are psychic and energetically sensitive. So I have to like work. It takes me effort to kind of go in there buttoned up. So I'm not getting psychic reads on all the people. I'm like, I'm just in Whole Foods trying to buy my vegetables. Right. I don't want to know everything about all the people that are around me. And that's just the way it is for me. I dream all night long. When I wake up in the morning, I really spend time like meditating and sort of mining my dreams for psychic information. And I'm really in a constant dialogue with my, I don't know if it's my higher self, my guides, my intuition around what's going on in every minute. This time of year is fun too because like there's a lot more connection with sort of, the paranormal around, ghosts and haunted things. And I was house hunting with my son up in Maine a couple weekends ago, and we went to look at a house, and I was so haunted I couldn't even go inside. And my kids were teasing me. They were like, "Mom, come on," and I'm like, "No, I'm not going in there." They think I'm crazy. And then we went from that haunted house to visit, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I've gone from that." And this is like 20 minutes from where Stephen King lives up in Maine. And I'm like, "Oh my God, I know why he wrote so many horror stories about Maine. It's super haunty up there."
Oh, wow.
Now I'm like, all right, I've left the haunted house and now I'm in a cemetery in this really rural town in Maine that I'm pretty sure Stephen King wrote a book about. So my whole life is like this time of year, I'm like, it's all the haunty stuff. I kind of like it. I'm not going to like do crazy things like bring the Ouija board to the abandoned mental hospital and
Right.
see what happens. Like, I'm not going to do that. But this time of year in the spring, it's more about, the spirits of nature. Like the garden comes up and I feel the fairies are there again. And, like, I don't know, that's just sort of like my everyday thing. But I do have an extra love for this time of year because I do like the haunty stuff.
All right. Thank you for explaining all of that because you experience things on such a deep level. And I think we all have like a range of how energetically sensitive we may be. And I think there's a lot of people who experience some level of energetic sensitivity and feel things that are going on, but may not experience it to that depth.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, going back to your experience in a store, if I walk into a store, I am very energetically sensitive, but I don't have the psychic aspect of it. So I'm not like reading people's minds or anything like that, but I can feel the energy, and it is extremely draining to go into a store.
Yeah, me too.
I'm curious, what is your experience when you go into a store?
Well, I usually spend like some minutes in my car, sort of buckling myself up. Like I do my routine, sort of ground clear, protect being in my energy bubble that I do before I go out in public. And then I have to exercise a little discipline. I think about the horse with the blinders on, I'm like, I'm just here to do my thing. And it takes me a little effort to sort of tune out the energy of other people. I'm saddened by how unhappy. It's not so much mind reading that I do. Sometimes that happens to me, but it's more feeling, like just tuning into how people are feeling. And it makes me sad how miserable and unhappy most people are. And especially adults. Kids seem happy, but you get kind of these, and life is hard, man. I get it. Like life, it's really hard to live right now, and just make ends meet and be a good person and take care of your family and take care of yourself. It's really difficult. And I feel, it makes me feel really sad and like feel tons of compassion for humanity and how hard it is sometimes to be a human. So that's more what I feel. And I think, nobody probably has gone into that Walmart and saged it out ever or done any
Right.
energy clearing practices ever, So there's just sort of an accumulation. Any place people gather or a lot of people move through, there's kind of an accumulation of this, I call it contact negativity. It's like leftover emotional energy, psychic residue, energetic spirits, like ghosts or energy attachments that sort of just lurk around unless we clean that up. Places like hospitals are super challenging for me because I think pretty much everyone in a hospital is miserable. The patients, the nurses, the doctors, the families. There's a lot of, and nobody's clean, clearing that. I mean, some people do, but for the most part, it's not a place that's getting an energetic clearing very often. So that energy residue is super heavy. And in the box stores, like the Wi-Fi, the fluorescent lights, there's a lot of EMF, electromagnetic frequency pollution. There's a lot of toxins in all the chemicals that are floating around a place like that that can be super impactful for people that are highly sensitive.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that because
Yeah.
for me it's also the smells and I can't even go into the kids' toy section because it's just like,
Or the detergent aisle.
yep, yep, or the air fresheners.
Oh my God. So much chemical toxicity. And the chemicals they put on clothes, flame retardant is, on kids' clothes and plastics. And, we just live in a very, very, very toxic world. And I think it's so hard to live clean, like you have to have a lot of time and extra money on your hands if you don't want to swim around in that toxic soup all the time. And I just feel like that's not a sustainable model for living, over time.
Right. So a couple of questions out of that. The first one would be, what advice would you have for somebody who needs to practice more psychic defense to protect themselves from everything that's out there on an energetic level?
Yeah, great question. So I teach like a basic ground clear and protect protocol that I use. It's super easy to do. And it's just really about centering yourself. So making a conscious decision to come inside yourself, grounding, which is being connected to the earth, feeling the bottoms of your feet, visualizing like a grounding cord, like roots going down into the ground. I think we have to clear our energy field. So I like imagine that I'm sitting under like a waterfall of light, and that waterfall is like washing away that contact negativity that I might have picked up, and then protecting sort of the outside edge of our energy field has a boundary layer to it, kind of like our skin. So your skin is meant to keep all you on the inside and the world on the outside. And we have another membrane like that on the outer edge of our energy field. And for empaths and highly sensitive people, or if you've had trauma, that boundary layer may be compromised. So imagining that you're inside a bubble of light that's about arm's length out, or maybe it's like a castle wall or a crystal ball or a coconut shell, or like the NASA spacesuit. Nothing's getting inside that thing, like you can go on outer space with that one. So some kind of visualization to strengthen the outer edge of our energy field. It responds really well to our intention and our imagination. Then you go in. So I'll do that before I go in. I'll do it halfway into the back. And if I start feeling about 20 minutes in, we're going to hit something called empathic overload. If you think about yourself as an energetic sponge, empathic overload happens when the sponge is full, and then you're like, I've got a headache. I'm cranky. I feel nauseous. I can't remember my name or where I parked my car or why I came in here, like that. That's me 20 minutes into Costco, even after I button up. And then, so I do it again. Sometimes I say like, excuse yourself to the ladies' room and wash your hands or restroom and wash your hands. And with this water, I'm clearing out any, energy that I picked up. Right. And then when I get back out into the parking lot, I might have to do it again. Otherwise, it's like, and we see this with kids. Like, why do little kids have like a meltdown? Because they're wide open and they don't know how to protect themselves in these environments. So 20 minutes in, they're having a meltdown. And maybe I want to have a meltdown too. I just know how not to do that because I'm a grown up. When they know they're maybe you can have your meltdown when you get home and there's no witnesses. I don't know, but all of those things can be super helpful. And they are over time. If you do that ground clear and protect, it's like taking your energy field to the gym and strengthening it. And over time you get stronger. The other thing I think is really helpful is wearing an EMF shield. It's like a little necklace or something you can wear that protects us from electromagnetic frequency. And I think really honoring if you have chemical sensitivities, food sensitivities, like just living as clean a life as we possibly can also really help.
Is there any specific EMF shield that you have used that's worked for you?
I like the Q-Link. It's called the Q-Link.
Mm-hmm.
It's relatively cheap. It's a little plastic one. You wear it and it also for people who are really empathic, it tends to cut down on the empathic noise just when we're out and about. I wear it when I'm on the plane, airplanes. I had to get a really like extra strength one because I have a hybrid car. And the hybrid car is this mom electric battery in the front. And I found that electric battery to be very disruptive to my energy field. I was surprised. And I just keep it like an industrial strength EMF shield in my car that I put on when I go in my car, because otherwise that battery gets me.
Oh, wow. And you can feel the difference that it makes?
Oh, yeah. Huge.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But I'm super sensitive. But I do think those things, so many people, and I wrote a book called Energy Healing for Empaths that has a lot of these tips and techniques and tools for empaths to sort of manage their energy in the world and how to understand that side of us. I mean, really take care of ourselves, set better boundaries. It's always about boundaries. And maybe those are energetic boundaries. Maybe it's chemical boundaries. Maybe it's boundaries with the people that, we know in our life, when with spirits too. So once you really understand how to set boundaries, it works with people, spirits, energy. It's a skill that's transferable to all those different situations.
I love that. So we've talked about the energetic defense side of things. And then the other topic that we came up in our conversation is the fact that we're surrounded by all of these toxins. And so for someone who may be feeling a little overwhelmed by that, do you have any simple steps that they could take to start to protect themselves a little more?
Yeah, wear an EMF shield, turn off your Wi-Fi router at night, and don't drink water out of cheap plastic bottles. Make sure you have a really good source, of water. And I think those are really, it makes me sad to see like that super flimsy plastic water bottle you kept in your car in the heat. Don't drink that, watch, like I stopped using plastic basically for my food containers. I use glass or ceramic because the plastic in the microwave seems like a really bad combination to me. Those things that we do that are super convenient, are there alternatives that can sort of lower the chemical load? I'm real careful about fragrance, like fragrance-free everything. Fragrance-free laundry detergent. Do we really need trash bags that smell like whatever?
I mean, cannot handle those.
I don't know. So I'm like haunting the aisles for the fragrance-free stuff. Like those cheap fragrances are really chemically horrible. And it's hard. You have to have some resources to do all that. So I get it. Not everyone can, but making sure that you keep what you put on your skin, and the water we intake as clear as possible, I think is a good place to start.
If you could give one message to everybody on the planet, what would it be?
I would say stay in your heart, and let's remember that love is the most powerful force in the universe. And I think the way that we get through the choppy next few years that I think we're going to have no matter what is to stay heart-centered and connected to your own heart, to the heart of divine source, whatever that is for you, to the heart of your family, to the heart of your community. If we stay in the heart, we're going to find our way through. I just believe that 100%.
Thank you for watching the Love Covered Life podcast. Lisa's links are in the description. For anyone who would like to support the podcast, you will also find the link to my Pay What You Can membership, my merch, my paintings, and my course. As always, go live your most extravagantly loving life.